The message spread across the spiral arms faster than any fleet ever could. It came in the form of a flat transmission from a small blue world on the quiet edge of a quiet star. The words were simple and carried no threat in tone, yet every species that intercepted the broadcast felt their pulse skip. It read only one sentence, translated into every known tongue. "Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be polite." The Council of the Inner Stars met within hours. The great hall, carved from a moon's hollowed interior, pulsed with soft lights as delegates murmured to each other. The hall that witnessed peace treaties, calls for unity, and even small border quarrels, but never had its walls listened to a message that sounded so casual and yet so final. The human envoy was not present. Humanity had withdrawn from meetings weeks earlier after a series of border raids from scattered factions that hoped to test Earth's patience. Most species assumed Earth would simply defend its own territory. What they had not understood was that Earth considered every attack on any Allied outpost as an attack on their own. Humans valued their promises with an intensity that most governments had never seen before. That was the part everyone had underestimated. Now the message stood as the last word before a storm no one wanted to face. Lyra, a junior analyst in the orbit of the Council's listening division, had been one of the first to process the transmission. Her hands trembled as she replayed it again and again. She had studied humanity for years. They were friendly, bright, and strange in a charming way. They cracked jokes at formal meetings. They shared food with everyone, even when others kept their meals separate. They sang during long warp jumps. Most species agreed that humans could make friends with a rock if left alone long enough. But Lyra also knew the other side. She had watched footage of human rescue ships plunging into burning atmospheres to save strangers. She had seen recordings of human soldiers standing in front of entire battalions to protect villages, full of people they had never met. Humans rarely started fights. They rarely bragged. They rarely acted with cruelty. Yet the history files showed something else, too. When pushed too far, humans moved with a unity that scared even themselves. They did not rage. They did not shout. They did not posture. They simply acted, and they always finished what they started. The border raids had begun as scattered attacks from rogue groups who believed Earth was weak. These groups had assumed humans were slow to anger because they negotiated instead of retaliating. That mistake had lasted only 2 months before Earth issued the single line, now echoing across Star System's dot in the council hall. One of the senior leaders, a tall figure named Rovan, raised a hand for silence. His voice carried the weight of someone who had studied 1,000 wars. He addressed the room with calm words. "We must decide as one. Do we rein in the factions who attacked Earth, or do we prepare for the outcome of this message?" Others shifted uneasily. A merchant representative spoke next. He stated that humans controlled several major trade routes and had the ability to shut down half the shipping lanes in the sector without firing a shot. Another representative added that humans had a strange talent for turning obstacles into advance. If Earth decided to abandon diplomacy, no one could predict the limits of their resolve, but not everyone feared the message. In the shadows of the outer seats, a minor warlord named Goron scoffed. He believed humans were bluffing. He insisted that a species that smiled so easily could not be capable of delivering true destruction. His words stirred a few whispers. Not all species understood how dangerous quiet determination could be. Lyra listened from her remote station, heart pounding. She thought of the human she had once spoken to during a data exchange. His name had been Toma. He had laughed at everything. He had shared a small fruit snack with her and said that humans liked giving food to others because it was a sign of trust. She remembered how gentle his voice had been when talking about cooperation between worlds. But she also remembered the way his tone changed only once when he mentioned the protection of allies. It had turned steady and cold for a brief moment. At the time, she had not understood it. Now she understood too well. While the council argued, Earth moved. A fleet rose from the shadowed side of Luna Station. They were not large in number compared to other galactic forces, but each vessel carried a design unseen anywhere else. The ships glowed faint blue along their hulls, shaped with sharp lines that suggested focus rather than intimidation. Their technology was a mix of innovation and desperation learned from centuries of surviving their own planet's hardships. Humans built their ships the way they built their shelters and medicines. They built them to last. They built them to endure anything. At the center of the fleet was a vessel named Quiet. Dawn. The name was not meant to scare anyone. It was simply the way humans name things, with odd poetry that confused most species. But the other name, painted discreetly on its side, carried more weight. It read Guardian. Humans had given it that title because they believed in protecting rather than conquering. Yet now the same ship would deliver a message louder than the broadcast. That had shaken the galaxy. Command of the fleet rested with a calm officer named Yalin. He stood at the bridge with hands clasped behind him, staring at the vast field of stars ahead. He felt no joy in what they were about to do. Humans never enjoyed war. They simply understood it with a clarity that came from a long and painful history. For every step they took toward peaceful partnerships, some distant hand always tested them. They had hoped this time would be different. They had been wrong. Yalin gave a simple order. Move forward. No speech. No battle cry. Just movement. The fleet slipped through warp lines with silent precision. They did not fire on anyone. They did not threaten anyone. Instead, they positioned themselves in 3 key locations across the region. One group appeared outside the territory of the warlord factions responsible for the raids. Another group positioned near a trade nexus where several species had encouraged the hostility from the shadows. The final group remained near council space as a shield. It was not an attack. It was a warning made visible. Earth did not want war. Earth wanted the galaxy to stop testing its patience. As the fleet appeared in those sectors, panic spread. Factions that had mocked Earth suddenly found human ships within striking distance of their worlds. Trade groups that had funded raids now saw their stations under peaceful yet unbreakable blockade. And the council felt the presence of the third group as a cold reminder that humans were no longer content with discussions. Lyra watched the rising tension from her console. Her heart raced as she analyzed the fleet movements. She sent reports to her superiors and urged them to act quickly. She reminded them that humans always allowed a final moment for the other side to step back. But after that moment passed, nothing could stop them. In the warlord sector, Goran attempted to rally his ships. He believed numbers would shield him. His fleets gathered, boasting more vessels than the human patrol in his region. But when Goran's ships advanced, the human vessels responded with a maneuver no one had documented before. They split into shifting formations that looked like flowing water. Every time Goran tried to trap them, the humans slipped through like light, bending around an unseen surface. They did not fire. They only blocked every possible route. It was a silent show of skill that spoke louder than weapons. In the trade nexus, station leaders tried to negotiate, but the humans repeated the same line over and over. Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be polite. The trade leaders insisted they had not attacked. The humans answered calmly. You funded those who did. The blockade remained. No goods passed. No shortcuts through human territory were allowed. In the council region, the human ships simply held their silent guard. They did not aim weapons at the council hall. They simply made it clear that if any more raids targeted peaceful outposts, the humans would no longer separate friend from foe. The council felt the weight of that unspoken implication. Debates broke into urgent arguments. Delegates shouted at each other while trying to decide what to do. Rovan stood again and demanded unity. He explained that Earth was giving them a chance. If they acted now, if they united to stop the hostile factions, the galaxy might avoid disaster. But if they hesitated, they risked becoming the target of a very focused and very capable species. Lyra hoped they would listen. She believed in cooperation. She believed in the promise Toma once spoke of. But she also knew that treaties were worthless without action. Finally, the council voted. For the first time in years, they voted with overwhelming agreement. The hostile factions would be forced to stand down. Trade groups funding raids would be audited. Zones under dispute would be neutralized. The council would publicly condemn the attacks and request diplomatic contact with Earth to repair the trust that had been broken. This message was sent across all channels. The response came half an hour later. A single transmission: "Thank you. We will stand down." Every human ship withdrew at the same moment. No posturing. No victory declaration. No demand for tribute. They simply left. Their retreat was as quiet as their advance. And it left behind a silence even deeper than before. Lyra sat back in her chair, head spinning. She had expected something far more dramatic. She had expected at least a message filled with anger. Instead,